everyone, it's Karina with Karina Loves to Plan. Thank you for joining me in my little corner of the internet where I talk all things planners, fountain pens, and fountain pen inks. Today, I'm doing a years later review of the Waterman Carene. I've had this pen for, oh my gosh, I have to double check now how long I've had this, but this was a pen I think I got 2 years ago. So January, I'm double checking here, January 2024. And this was not a pen that I ever thought that I would have in my collection, but here it is still 2 years later. I do have to admit though that I am selling the Carene in amber. It's actually pending right now, and I'm going to be keeping the sea green shimmer, but I'll talk more about that as we do this years later review. But if you haven't seen my initial review of this pen, I'm going to leave that in the corner right here. That review is going to have all of the measurements and quick writing sample and things like that. But this review is more centered on these specific questions, and I'm going to pull that out right here. So the questions that I'm going to be looking at for this years later review are going to be things like, is this good for long or short writing sessions? Is it better with wet or dry inks? Does it have feedback or is it smooth? Does the pen stain? Is it comfortable in the hand? Is it an everyday carry or is it best left at the desk? How is the pen with sheen or shimmer inks? And what is my preferred paper for writing with this? All right, let's get started. Before I do that though, let's just go over these models really quickly. So we have the first one that I purchased was this Waterman Carene in amber. I purchased this from Atlas Stationers in January of 2024, and I was able to use a credit towards this. And the pen has an 18 karat fine nib. Beautiful, and look at that lovely inlaid nib. And it comes with a converter. Beautiful 18 karat nib, very lovely in the hand, but also beautiful when posted. And there's not many pens that I post, but the Waterman Carene is one of those pens. And I just love how classy this looks. And then a few months later, I also purchased the sea green shimmer. I purchased this from eBay and it came with the ballpoint pen. And how much was this one off of eBay? I believe I bought this like in August. I'm trying to remember now. Yeah, it was in August off of eBay, and it was definitely a lot more expensive. This one also came with a fine nib, but I had this ground down to an extra fine, and it also came with the converter. Beautiful 18 karat nib, but I just love the finish of the sea green shimmer. And while I love both of these pens, I'm getting to that point in my collection where do I need 2 Waterman Carenes? No, it's a beautiful pen. And if I had to choose between these two, which one would I keep? I would be keeping the sea green shimmer. So the Waterman Carene in amber is actually pending the sale right now. Nothing bad to say about the pen. It's just in my head in terms of my collection, I'm cleaning it up a little bit, keeping things that I really, really want to keep. Now, if you did miss my initial review of the Waterman Carene, I'm going to do just even a quick one here. So the Waterman Carene Sea Green Shimmer that I purchased off eBay came with a ballpoint as well, and I thought that was really cool that the set came together, whereas this one I purchased off of Atlas Stationers. And like I said before, these are both 18 karat nibs, and they come with the converter. Really lovely packaging, just an overall beautiful pen. Now I'm going to compare this to other pens in my collection for sizing. So there you have the Waterman Carene in the sea green shimmer, and then I'm going to compare it to my Esterbrook Esty, my Leonardo Momento Magico. I'm also going to compare it to one of my really other classic timeless pens is the Pelican or the Pelican M800. No matter how you say it, it's that pen. And then lastly, I'll also compare it to, pulling stuff out of my drawer here, the TWSBI Eco, so that you can see that in terms of its sizing. And then uncapped, you can see the differences in the size. It's still very similar in length to the Esterbrook Esty, but in terms of the difference in width, it's actually really hard to show the difference in the grip section between the two, which is why I actually love having the calipers. So with the Esterbrook Esty, with where I normally grip it, It's about 11.51, so almost a full millimeter larger than the Waterman Carene, because with where I grip this, it's about a 10.75, or depending on where I put that, slightly less. So you would think that this would be not as comfortable, but with the overall size of the body and the weight of the pen as well, it actually is very, very comfortable to write with, especially when I cap that. And then you can see how much bigger and wider the Memento Magico is versus the Waterman Carene. And then when we compare it to the Pelikan M800, now the M800 also has, I believe, I'm just trying to remember here, the Pelikan, let me see here, the M800 is also an 18 karat gold nib, but definitely different looking than the Waterman. But these two, in terms of how smooth they are, they write very differently. The 18 karat nib on the Pelikan is definitely bouncier and wetter and writes a much broader line, whereas the nib on the Waterman Carene is smooth, has a little bit more feedback, but is a very, very stiff nib. And then lastly, comparing it to the TWSBI Eco, just difference in size. TWSBI Eco is definitely narrower in the grip section, but wider in the body. Now, I know this wasn't a full review of the Waterman Carene, but if you did want my initial review and first impressions, I've left a link to that video in the description below. So let's go ahead into my notebook, and the notebook that I'm using is my Hobonichi A5 journal with 52 GSM Chamoy River paper. So I'm going to be doing basically a writing sample with the sea green shimmer, but it's not inked or anything. I'm just going to go ahead and dip it, and then we'll write our answer. The ink that I will be writing with is Diamine Canal Side. So the first question in the years later review is that, is this pen good for long writing sessions? And I would absolutely say yes. It is comfortable and nib writes beautifully. Now, whether or not it is good for, I just said good, I said just yes, but it's good for both long and writing sessions, and I will have to say just long here as well. And the reason that I do find it comfortable is that it does fit quite well in the hand. I'm actually going to do a quick measurement for you right now. With where I grip this pen, it is about the 10.67, you're not even seeing that, 10.66 millimeters. With where I grip this pen, it's about 10.64 millimeters, which is a little on the narrower side, but it's still actually quite comfortable for those longer writing sessions. So for me, yes, this is comfortable. And then when I post it, this is one of very few pens that I post, and when I post it, it is very comfortable. Where the cap sits in the perlicue doesn't actually bother me too much. It's a very, very comfortable pen. So yes, this is good for long writing sessions. Now, is this better with wet or dry inks? And you know what? It's good with both, especially the extra fine nib that I have on this. It's got an average flow, so it works well with both wet or dry inks. Now, before I had the nib ground down, the fine nib was actually very good with all inks, and it didn't make any ink too dry. So really lovely, lovely nib. And that goes into the next question here. Is there feedback? Is it smooth? There is a bit of feedback. And I do have to say that it's not as smooth as like a Pilot nib, for example, but also it's a very stiff nib. It's not one of your bouncy 18 karat nibs. So I'm just going to write that here, not bouncy, but there is feedback here, but not in a way that's going to make you think, oh, it's scratchy. It's actually got a good amount of feedback, probably less feedback than the Sailor nib. Now, if you're not familiar with what feedback is really that feeling that you get between the pen and the paper, that you can really feel the, I say, friction between the two. Whereas with smooth, it almost just glides on the paper like, what do people call it? Like glass or ice, whereas feedback is more the way that you can really feel the texture like you would a pencil writing on paper. So feedback's not a bad thing. It, again, is a personal preference of whether or not you like that much feedback, but this does have feedback. It's a stiff nib. It's not a bouncy gold nib, but it does still have that smoothness. So I really enjoy that nib. Now, the question that people ask is, does it stain? And because the grip section is black, no, does not stain. But I have found that the finish on here does tend to scratch a little bit. There's like some scratchings on mine as well. And maybe it's just the way that I use it, but definitely be careful with the finish on here. It can scratch a little bit, but I think that's going to come with any fountain pen that anyone is using. It's going to come with your daily scuffs and scratches, but it definitely does not stain. However, what I'm finding here is that, like, depending on the type of ink can have a little bit of residue in the nib here. So like this one has a little bit of like a reddish tinge to it from a previous inking that I had. The next question, is it comfortable in the hand? And I definitely have to say yes, very comfortable, both posted and unposted. And I think that really is a personal preference. If you find the pen a little too heavy when it is posted, then unposted is still a really good size pen. Just look at that. And then when you post it, it does add a little bit of weight to it, but it's not back heavy. It actually weighs, you know, it's a pretty good balanced pen. It's just one of those classic pens that's really well made and engineered well, and is just a really comfortable writing experience overall. Now, the next question asking is this an everyday carry or best left at your desk? Now, this is a strange question to ask me because I work from home, so I'm not taking my pens anywhere. And if I'm writing with them for work, they're literally traveling 3 feet from my crafting desk to my work desk. So this question for me, is it an everyday carry or best left at desk? I'm just thinking of, is this a pen that I would take out and about with me if I'm just doing everyday errands? Probably for me, this is going to be my best left at desk pen, especially since this particular finish, the sea green shimmer, is so hard to come by. And a previous experience of mine with my Pelican M1000, I took it with me to the therapist's office and I was journaling and dropped it and broke it. And after that experience, I'm much more careful with the pens that I take out in public with me. So I'm going to say this one is best left at desk, just because Waterman Carenes are actually getting a little bit more expensive now. And for this particular one, being as rare as it is, it's not one that I would want to lose or break. The next question, how is the pen with sheen or shimmer inks? Now, I don't use shimmer inks very often, just as a personal preference. Sheen inks give me headaches just because of how light sensitive I am. But with shimmer inks, I've actually used this with different shimmer inks, and it performs well with the shimmer. I've had no issues with hard starts or anything like that. And if anything, if there were specific inks that I've had issues with, it would be those inks that have just those larger shimmer particles that end up giving hard starts to all pens that it's put in, so that it's not really pen specific. But this does perform really well with the shimmers, and now that I've had it ground down to an extra fine nib, it still works well with shimmer ink. So this is definitely one that you can, I say put through the ringer, but if you want to use a shimmer ink, use a shimmer ink. Don't let that stop you. And then I guess the last question on this one, what's my preferred paper for this? Now, the papers that I use on a day-to-day basis are the Hobonichi Tomoe River paper, but I'm also using for my doodles, I'm using the Hemlock and Oak paper, which is their version of fountain pen friendly paper. It's their Archivist 70 GSM paper, and I really prefer my Tomoe River paper, just because of how smooth it is, and it's because it's paper that I'm been used to for how many years I've been planning, but also how many years I've been in the fountain pen hobby. Tomoe River paper for me is just my favorite. Now, I know there have been some issues with some of the productions of the papers over the years, but thankfully the notebooks that I have are from a good batch of paper and I don't have to worry about them too much here. So there's my years later review of the Waterman Carene. Again, these models are the amber and the sea green shimmer. And I know there's so many different colors out there as well, but I'm in love with the sea green shimmer and just how classic and beautiful it looks. Such a classic pen that I feel like it's one of those pens, kind of like the Lamy 2000, where you have to give it a try at least once just to get a feel for that 18 karat nib, but also to have a pen in this very classic, distinguished finish is something that I think everyone should try. The nib might be too broad for some people, but I was able to get mine ground down to an extra fine and I absolutely love it. All right, that is it for me. I'm hoping this is going to be of useful information to you, especially with the years later review. I've been using this pen now for 2 years and I absolutely love it. It's one of, I guess, my favorite pens in my collection because it's just so classic yet understated, but such a wonderful writer. And I always look forward to inking these up because it's one of those sleeper pens where it's not the, it's not the one that's the flashiest. It's not the one that is the most expensive or anything like that, but it's just such a good, reliable, consistent pen. Okay, that is it for me. Thank you all so much for watching. If you have any questions, please leave them down below. Otherwise, don't forget to hit that like button and to subscribe. Thank you all so much for watching and have yourselves a great day.